Hello, it's Sonia here, The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is Tuesday, and that means it's Tunisian Tuesday. So we are going to be doing a stitch pattern, and I find with this one, I really like it with a larger hook. So I'm actually using my N hook or 9mm hook, but you can definitely use this pattern with a variety of hook sizes and yarn types. And I'm just going to use some cotton yarn here. It's a number 4. So we are going to get started. So for this stitch pattern, it is a 2-row repeat. So not a lot of repeats, and they're pretty easy to remember. So we are going to need to chain an even number. So why don't we chain 14? Alright, so I have my 14 chains here. We're going to work on row 1, and that will be our setup row. So in the second chain from our hook, I do like to work in the back bump when doing Tunisian crochet. I'm going to insert my hook in that back bump, and I'm going to pull up a loop. And I'm going to continue to pull up loops all the way across my chain. And with Tunisian crochet, it is always worked in 2 parts. So the first part of this row, we are putting our stitches on our hook by working in that back bump, and then the second part we will take the stitches off, and each part is 1 row. So this beginning part of the row is called the forward pass, and the other part when we take our stitches off will be called the return pass. So if you've never done Tunisian crochet, I do have a playlist that goes over the basics to get you started, and I can place a link in the description box if you want to check those out. I also have other Tunisian crochet stitch patterns and actual patterns if you want to make items with Tunisian crochet. Alright, so I should have 14 loops on my hook, and now we're going to start the return pass. So to do the return pass, you're going to yarn over and pull through 1 loop. And for the rest of the row, you're going to yarn over and pull through 2. So we're going to continue to pull through 2 for the rest of row 1, and then row 1 will be complete. Okay, so there is row 1. So now we're going to begin row 2. This is the start of the repeat. So we are going to work a purl together stitch or decrease. So yarn is in front, and if you don't know how to do a Tunisian purl, it is in the playlist. And I'm going to insert my hook in the next 2 vertical bars. So 1, 2, and continue to work the purl stitch. And now we are going to work in the stitch. So in between each bar, it looks like a chain. So where I mean is, let's just make sure that's not slipping and sliding. Probably will though. So here is the next vertical bar right here. And in between, it looks like a chain. So I'm going to insert my hook in the top loop of that chain in between the vertical or the stitch we just worked. So here is the stitch, that's the together stitch. Here is that chain, here is the next vertical bar. So we are going to pull up a loop in on that top loop of that chain. And it's easier to see when you use a larger hook, so you can definitely see that chain. Alright, so now we're going to work Tunisian purl again, and we're going to repeat by working the together stitch. So the next 2 vertical bars, working that purl stitch, and then we work on that top loop that looks like a chain, pulling up a loop, because we are taking away a stitch by working the together stitch here. So we need to add that stitch back on because we do want to have the same amount of stitches when we get to the end of this forward pass. Alright, so now we're going to continue to work the Tunisian purl in the next 2 vertical bars. So at the end of this row, because I chained 14, I will have 14 loops on my hook. And you might have chained a different number. So whatever amount that you chained, you still will have, you should have the same amount of loops on your hook at the end of your second row of your forward pass. Alright, so we're almost at the end of the row. Oops, we're doing Tunisian purl, so I'm working those last 2 vertical bars. And we still need to work in the part that looks like a chain. And then there's one more stitch that looks like a chain at the end. And this is definitely looser. But I do think, it looks a little messy in the beginning, but I think it looks really pretty once you get a couple rows in. Alright, so you work your return pass the same, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so I finished the return pass for row 2. So now we're going to work row 3. Row 3, we're going to work Tunisian knit all the way across. So here's that first vertical bar. We're going to work through it. So if you've not done Tunisian knit, so we're going through that, pulling up a loop. That again is in the playlist. It goes over the stitch. So we're just working Tunisian knit all the way across for our forward pass for row 3. This is the second part of the repeat here. And then our stitch right there, it looks like a chain. Pull up a loop. Yep, we're going to do that. Okay, so we should still have 14 loops. And now we work our return pass. So what you're going to do is you're just going to repeat rows 2 and 3 for however long you want your swatch. And then we will work the bind off row, that is finishing off your work. And so I will work a few more rows so you can really see the stitch pattern pop out, because I said before, this one you kind of need a couple rows in so that you can see it and appreciate it, which is pretty common with a lot of stitch patterns. So I'm going to keep going and I will meet you back. Okay, so here we go. I've worked 13 rows, so you can see that it's kind of more of an open stitch, and I just think it's really a pretty stitch and I really like it with a larger hook. So now we are going to work our return pass, or not a return pass, we're going to work our bind off row. So it just helps to finish off our work, because if you see that, it just doesn't look very nice. So we want to make this row look like that one as close as we can. So we're going to bind off in pattern. So how we're going to do that, so we finished up on a row 3, so now we're back to row 2. We're going to have our yarn in front, work that Tunisian purl stitch, and bind off is a combination of Tunisian crochet and slip stitch in regular crochet. So there's the Tunisian crochet stitch. Now we work the slip stitch and we work the bind off. So now we're going to work in the next stitch, that part of the chain, pull up our loop and work the slip stitch, and we just do that all the way across. And with binding off, you do want to watch your tension, because it can get a little tight and that will just affect the quality of your work. So just be mindful of that. You want to be a little bit more relaxed when you're binding off. It is very easy to really tighten up when binding off. So I'm almost at the end of my row here, finishing up that last Tunisian purl together stitch, working in that final chain there. Well, not the final chain, so then we have to finish up in that last stitch there. And we've worked the bind off row. Alright, so now you can see this one does lay a little bit more flat, which is nice. A lot of Tunisian crochet stitches tend to curl, but not this one. And I think this would look pretty in a variety of projects, especially maybe like a shawl, a scarf, maybe a blanket, you know, for like a lighter weight blanket, maybe in some cotton yarn would be really nice. And I made another little swatch. So this one I used worsted weight yarn and I used a J hook or 6mm hook. So you can see the difference. The stitches are a little bit tighter together, but still I think a really pretty stitch with using a slightly smaller hook as well. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.